My name is Joe Kuemerle. We're going to talk about using CTFs to train non-security folks. I do work for Salesforce. None of what I'm going to talk about is company proprietary or confidential. It's based on articles that we have published, software that we have open sourced. This is training material that we're using internally and in customer-facing roles that has definitely engaged non-security people in learning security topics. So this is all real world. There's code out there. I'm not able to demo it today. I don't have time or space for that, but I'm happy to talk about it, and I'm happy to talk afterwards. I put on a little technical conference in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. If you want to come to that, love to see you there. Click. There we go. So we're going to talk the why, the what, and the how about using CTFs to train non-security people. There we go. So who's doing the CTF here today? A few people? All right, we've all done CTFs before, right? Where we go to a conference, we go and get those challenges. You know, they are usually things that stretch our skills as security people to try and solve those challenges. I thought, what if we took that level of interest, that level of gamification, and used it to engage non-security people to teach them to think a bit more like attackers. There are developers out there. How many of us are supporting at least 5 developers? How many are supporting more than 5 developers? 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 100. Yeah, there's a lot more people out there writing code than we have time to work with. The best way to get developers or to fix security issues is to have developers not write them in the first place. If we can get their interest and hold it, then that's a great win for us because it lets us do things that aren't, oh my God, it's another SQL injection vulnerability that I have to tell them how to fix. In order to come up with effective tools for training developers and others, I did some basic research on methodologies of learning and what actually works. Who's seen the learning pyramid or the cone of learning? This is something that's commonly out there in the educational space. And if you look at it and you think, well, you know, they say people retain 5% of what they learn in a lecture, 10% of what they learn reading, 90% through teaching others. That's bunk. That has been conspicuously and thoroughly debunked in the educational community. It is not relevant. And if you think about it from your day-to-day perspective, do you really only retain 10% of what you read? If you did, there might be a problem. So Cisco put out a study years ago on multimodal learning. This is an actual peer-reviewed, data-backed study that talked about proven effective ways of teaching people. And what they found is there are the 4 quadrants of interactive learning, of basic and higher order skills. What we're doing as technologists and what our developers are doing is in this interactive higher order skills quadrant. You know, developers, all of us are working. It is thought work. It is highly interactive. So if we can get a 32% average increase per student in retention, comprehension, and the ability to demonstrate what they've learned over time, that provides us with significant benefit. In order to accomplish that, there are the 8 principles of effective multimodal learning. Again, I'm not going to read through all of these, but what's particularly jumped out to me was number 8, that direct manipulation principle. If we can, again, use some sort of methodology for teaching people where they are hands-on, physically performing these exercises, solving these problems in a hands-on way, they are going to fall into that 32% and hopefully increase their retention and their ability to use that learning on the job, which is where we want them to be able to do it, not just, can you sit through a 3-hour PowerPoint and answer some multiple choice questions at the end? come back next year and do the same thing. We want this while you're hands on keyboard writing code. There we go. So everyone's distracted. Developers are distracted. All the users of our tools are distracted. We want something that's going to cut through that distraction. Gamification is a great way of doing that. So if we're going to gamify our learning, we're going to bring out that innate human sense of competition, maybe bringing some cooperation into it, having a set of intrinsically motivated challenges to make you want to think. You need some extrinsic motivation as well. So if you think about most games, you're competing against others, and we're going to do that as well. If you're working in a CTF, you're most often challenging the others within your group to see who gets the highest score. This is very critical because, again, at Salesforce, some of what I need to do is teach our customers secure ways of building on the Salesforce platform. This is the environment I'm fighting against. This is the show floor of the Dreamforce show, 100,000 attendees. I had to build security curriculum to get our customers to internalize secure development techniques on our platform in this environment. I did that through gamification. Also helps internally. Developers have email, they've got project plans, they've got stand-up meetings, they've got all the stuff. We want them to learn these security topics as well. It's also a highly distracting environment that we want to adjust to them. So when we do that, we come back to our principles of learning. What can we most use to reinforce these topics and techniques? Being redundant, having things close together in time, close together in space, reinforcing these concepts over and over again. Gamification and a capture the flag really helps us get there. They have internal motivation. There's these cool challenges that I want to figure out how to solve. They have external motivation. Everyone else in this group is also competing against me. We have a reward system. I'm getting points for this. I might be getting prizes, recognition, something like that. So we have multiple methods of reinforcement in order to get people to understand and internalize security concepts that we want them to build on. As I said, we'll go through a quick set of screenshots. So this is a high-level architecture of a lot of what we built to power some of this. This is publicly blogged about on the Salesforce engineering blog. One of the things we needed to do was, as a customer of Salesforce or as a user of Salesforce, you have full access to everything within your tenant. That means I can't just generate a random value, stick it in some obscure spot, and expect you to not be able to find it. There has to be an external storage of that flag value in order to reinforce for you to do the right thing as a player. Hence, a set of structures that are using OAuth, distributed authentication, to inspect the Salesforce tenant that you as a player are working in, to examine it to make sure that you've done the security activity correctly before we issue you your successful flag. This is applicable to just about anything else that you might want to pivot it to. It's not just Salesforce. If you want to build AWS-specific challenges, you could use the similar pattern. If you have internal applications, internal platforms that have a similar method of self-introspection, you can absolutely leverage some of this code and some of these techniques for building your own custom capture the flags, targeting your specific audience with your specific set of issues that you want them to learn more about, and provide a tightly integrated, highly efficient way for your players to participate. So quick walkthrough. A user comes in, they're a player, they're going to sign up. They sign up for it. They get their welcome screen. We say, hey, great, here's your credentials, welcome. We give you some easy challenges. Again, this is targeted at both administrators and developers. So what I've got on screen is a set of challenges. We ask them some trivia questions, get them up to speed, give them some easy points while they're waiting for things to happen. And then we start on the security topics that we want to reinforce. First one is pretty easy. This is going in and changing some settings to enable cross-site scripting protection. The details are not significant. What is significant is there's no flag entry. There's a validate button. The user clicks on that when they've done what they need to do. We examine that they have done the correct thing, which is going in, clicking the right checkbox, making the code changes that are necessary to prevent the exploitation, whatever have you. They save that. They hit the validate. Congratulations, we give them a value. They can submit it. They've got their 500 points. They are now on the board. We see that, again, that extrinsic motivation. They see other people are playing. They see where they are on the score sheet. It drives them to interact more and to learn more about the security topics that we want to point them to. This is, again, just some quick reports. Over the days, we had 4 days of the conference. Attendance dropped off near the end. But at the beginning, we had 189 players on day one, so on and so forth. Our number of participants was pretty good for a small booth off in the corner of the convention center where our focus was on security, and all of the rest of the Moscone Conference Center was on all the other stuff that was not security related. Some reporting that we had, again, built through the platforms that I'm going to talk about in the second part of this talk. If you look at our, again, this is customer facing, median time spent interacting with that CTF was tens of minutes. Average time spent, multiple tens of minutes. If you think about when you're at a very sales-oriented conference, walking around a show floor, interacting with this booth here, that booth there, how often are you spending tens of minutes with the content that that booth is trying to get to you? Not very often. So our results were pretty impressive for the space that we were in and the interest that we were trying to get engaged. In general, the number of questions that people interacted with, on the order of tens of questions. I think we had a total of 60-some total challenges. So many people were interacting with, a third to a half of the challenges. So not full coverage on what we wanted at that event. This is something that for internal use, we can focus more tightly on, give a better sub-selection of specific challenges that we're looking for people to get involved in, and increase that for internal facing audiences. Just some other metrics on how many people actually answered correctly versus incorrectly, categories that we were in. Your takeaway from this is where I want to talk a bit about what you can do. Audiences that you can build for. We built for customers. We also build for internal developers. Similar but slightly different audience. In your role, when you're taking this back for training your people, think about the audiences that you're aiming for. How technical are they? This is going to affect what challenges and what level of challenges you're going to give them. What are your goals in this, whatever security training you're trying to do? Are you trying to eliminate an entire class of vulnerabilities? Are you trying to raise awareness across the OWASP top 10? Are you looking at, we have a custom in-house system that we want people to be able to understand better? I've done CTFs at conferences targeted at teenagers. So I had tweens and teens. I built a CTF for them that had challenges that were interesting to them, but not, here's a base 64 AES encrypted string, go and find the key that was generated off of java.rand and decrypt it. That's something for us. You want to have the consideration for your audience in place as you're going through and building it. So we'll talk a bit more about the how and what you're going to do. Building a CTF is a great way to collaborate with other teams. If you have development managers, development architects, infrastructure, business people, these are all great resources to collaborate with to build a set of challenges that are relevant to the business. This is not something that you can and should do just as security unless you're interested in building a security-only CTF, in which case this is useful to you, but I'm going to be talking more about, again, targeting developers, targeting administrators, targeting people who we want to raise the security awareness of because they're not sitting in these rooms getting this content from everyone else. Some other considerations to keep in mind when we build CTFs for these conferences, we make them as hard as possible. That's not a great way to maintain interest and engagement for people whose primary interest is not how can I break the system, but is more along how can I deliver software that passes a test case, ships on time so that I can get my bonus and go home at 5. We want our challenges to be interesting, but we also want to make them appropriate. We want to maintain the difficulty levels so that it is not dead easy, so that they can't just do it in their sleep, but we don't want to build something that is enormously difficult to solve because that's just going to make people say, this is a pain in the butt, I'm not going to do it, I have better things to do with my day. So I built a little rubric about my recommendations for how we can build these challenges so that they are engaging to our audience, teach the topics that we want, and maximize the reinforcement from that multimodal learning. They are hands-on, they are interactive, they are interesting, they are things that have a solution, they are things that reinforce the concepts that we're looking to solve. There are some red flags you want to be careful of as we're building out these challenges. Some things we want to avoid, again, we as security people are a little bit strange in the brain. We like difficult to impossible to solve challenges. That's recreational to us. Not always a great way to get a larger scale security awareness for developers to go and internalize. So again, as you're building out these challenges, you want to avoid some of these red flags to make sure that you're going to maintain your audience's attention. You want to stay focused. When you're building out your first CTF, try and make it as narrow as possible. Limit the number of challenges that you're building. Think of what are the top 1 or 2 most prevalent security topics that you want to reinforce. Start with that. Iterate over time. Agile techniques are your friend here. With the tooling that is in the repo, you've got ways of collaborating on challenges, of having a CI/CD pipeline, of easily pushing out new builds of your CTF so that you have a low friction way, and that'll help you start small and then expand as you get that feedback of, hey, this one was really fun, or no one was actually working on this other challenge, so we might want to reconsider it. Having that feedback cycle and that iterative development will help you build an effective capture the flag that you can then grow over time. We'll talk some more about technology later. In the meantime, if this was something that I had a little more time to do and wasn't on as tight of a schedule, we'd get up, we'd walk around, and we'd think of some challenges. Take just a few seconds. Think about your own use case. What would you like to teach your developers or your audience, and what is 1 or 2 challenges that you think would be great. Remembering to emphasize reasonable solutions, something that's interesting, something that's appropriate, and avoiding absolute difficulty. So I'm going to shut up for a few seconds and stare awkwardly at you while you think. All right, now you've all got something in your head. Excellent. Let's move on to how you can take that idea and actually implement it. The first thing you want to remember is this has to be an easy process. You want this as low friction as possible for your players. If you make it too difficult, you're going to lose them. If it's not interesting to them and you're forcing them to do it, they're going to be doing it under duress and, again, not internalizing the content that we want them to learn and to understand. So minimizing the friction is a critical first step in making this as integrated and easy as possible. As I said, there's tooling out there that does this. APIs are your friends. Anything that you have that you can make this friction-free, and remembering back to our principles, that temporal adjacency, that spatial relevancy, coming back to, how can you minimize the amount of context switching that someone is going to have to do to go from reading the challenge to performing the actions that they need to take to getting their result, to submitting it and getting that little bit of dopamine hit from the congratulations, you solved it, your flag value is correct, here's 50 points for you, good job. Making that as smooth and easy as possible, minimizing those context shifts means the person has more cognitive ability to focus on the content that we're asking them to learn and internalize. We don't want this to be, we're going to teach you how to solve a puzzle for solving a puzzle's sake, but more, we're going to teach you what SQL injection is, how to exploit it from the perspective of an attacker, so that as you're building code, that's going to be in the back of your head. And if you're ever sitting there starting to concatenate a parameter into a string value, you're going to think, wait a minute, I remember breaking this last month when I had to go through the CTF. And you're going to stop and think, okay, how can I fix this? And you're not going to think, well, it took me 47 different clicks on 17 different web pages to get the scoring system to tell me that I did the right thing. Which brings us to scoring. We want to have a variety of challenges. We want them to be a variety of levels. Human beings, we like a little variety. Having something that's easy to do to get started gets us that initial hook. Having some moderately difficult things gets us more involved, and then maybe some stretch goals. We can solve and rate that with appropriate scoring. Having low difficulty, lower value challenges for those people who just need that little extra kickstart, or if there's processes that have to happen, keeping them involved while those deployment processes happen. Moving up to those higher level prizes where some of us will look at it and say, oh, that's 500 points. I want to work on that. It's absolutely engaging. In order to do this, you are going to need to collaborate. You're going to need to get buy-in. This is a security training program. This is something that you can certainly do as a skunkworks project. The tooling is open source. There's free tooling. It takes your time. It takes your effort. It takes working with other teams. But getting this to any sort of success internally means buy-in from those other stakeholders. Getting engineering managers interested and involved in this, getting network operations teams interested and involved in this, getting individual developers interested in this. The sale of this concept is as important as its execution. Being able to generate interest with a small team, get it done, get a proof of concept out there, get some people who are interested and involved in it, and then get them talking about it is a great way to build this program out. And if you demonstrate the effectiveness of it, then it becomes something that is self-sustaining, and takes on a life of its own and can absolutely grow. As I said, that communication is key. Not just the event, but the planning leading up to it. Involving those other teams is critical. Exchange and encourage collaboration across teams. If you've got a network security team, hey, do you want to build a challenge for our CTF? If you have an audit team, if you have a compliance team, everyone can be involved in contributing ideas to it. And again, that gives you a great well of resources to go back to, because this is going to be something that's going to grow, it's going to change, and you're going to need to keep it fresh, so you're going to have those external contacts. And then, again, broadcasting what you've done, being very loud about the successes that you've had. Anecdotally, again, back at the Dreamforce conference, I had a guy who got, one of our customers, he got really interested in this. He was so involved. He started that day and was up until like 2 in the morning, solved every single challenge we had. And he's like, he came to me the next day, he's like, this was awesome. I did not go to anything else at this conference. And I told my boss that I didn't need to, because I now know all of this new security knowledge that I'm going to take back. So it was something that was engaging to him, was interesting to him, caused him to pursue it as a passion, and achieved my goals of, great, now you know security capabilities, you know how to write code securely, you know how to find and fix vulnerabilities in this code. Great, I've achieved what I need. And I made sure that I included that story in my post-event write-up. That is one anecdote, but I also had all those charts and data demonstrating by proxy that I had more interest than just one guy who stayed up until 2 a.m. So we do want to encourage people to participate in this. Scores, internal and extrinsic drives of competing against other people are a factor in that. Other rewards are also beneficial. I've never done a CTF with a cash prize. I don't know that I would recommend it. However, at Salesforce, we have internal company store with merch, and the winners of our regular security training CTFs do get, the top, I think we give like the top 3, a little prize that's they can have access to. So having some sort of physical reward is often significant. This can also come as recognition. CTFs, if you are building out a security champions program, finding those people who get massively interested in your CTF and obsessively solve every challenge, that's a great indicator of a security champion candidate. They are, or maybe even a security team recruit in the future. So, but having some sort of external reward, again, gives that level of reinforcement to those people who are playing that need something more than just the challenge of solving an obscure security bug. We want it to be fun. These challenges should not be boring. It should not be something that's uninteresting. This is an awesome belt sander racing competition. Absolutely pointless, but it looks like a lot of fun. Think about that as you're building out your challenges. That's what's going to keep people interested. That's what's going to keep them involved. And again, that's what's going to reinforce in their heads, this is something that is important, that I want to continue doing, and that I'm going to learn about why this challenge is there and what I did to solve it. Most of our challenges that we work with in security CTFs are built to be difficult by design. It's okay to have 1 or 2 extraordinarily difficult for your audience challenges in your CTF for those people that find that interesting, the majority of your CTF should not be impossible to solve. The goal that we're working towards is education, and to do that, it needs to be approachable to the vast majority of our audience. And again, doing that through multiple levels of challenges, each backed by appropriate numbers of points, so that we have that balance. And this is something that you'll develop over time, is balancing, this type of a challenge is probably an X number of points on our scale versus this one that's a Y. And again, as part of communication, you need that information gathering. So following up after the event, following up with your participants, doing post-event surveys. Did you find it interesting? Did you learn something specific? What is your specific feedback? Are there things that can improve? Taking this and bring it into your iterative process. This is not a one and done. I'm going to build a CTF, throw it out there, and walk away from it. This is ongoing and evolving. Again, at Salesforce, this is our every first Wednesday of the month is security training for new engineering hires. All of them have time they get presented to by security, they have pre-learning material, and the CTF is a huge part of what we do for our security training for them, so that they have that hands-on interaction, and then we gather back from them what's working, what's not working, and we adjust course as necessary. So if you're going to be doing this, you're going to need a way to maintain and build challenges. In a couple slides, you'll see a GitHub repo for this talk. It's got scripts in there that I developed, and some utilities that Salesforce has open source to make life easier. What you can do, again, from those scripts is using the CTF tooling to build things is not a great recipe for getting something that's repeatable and extensible. Building out challenges in a format that's collaborative, that allows for collaboration. I use YAML files. They're a lot easier to read than JSON. They're easy for relatively semi-technical, non-technical content developers and others to collaborate on. GitHub has an in the web page editor for it, so it makes it generally useful. And it's a great way to ensure that we can have a set of challenges in a semi-structured document way that we can collaborate on, and it makes it very easy to continue building and developing. Having those integrations, whatever platforms you're building out to, having those integrations. Again, at Salesforce, what we open sourced was a custom challenge type for CTFD that will allow you to bounce out to an external validation service, get redirected back into the CTF with the flag. So it's, again, a low friction way for people to easily solve those challenges, have those results in line without having to click on a lot of different systems and do a lot of different things. There are a lot of CTF platforms out there. I'm using CTFD. It's open source. There's a commercial supported option. It's got great integration tooling, relatively easy to use and stand up. It's not the only one. There are a lot of different ones out there. Use what works for you. There's a list of awesome different CTF platforms. The important thing is something that works in your environment with your skill set, targeting what you're looking for. Having an easy to use deployment, again, scripts that are out there lend themselves to very much a CI/CD style of workflow. I have it script set up. I've got a lockdown repository with my challenges in YAML, and those will very easily go through the build process, go through a continuous deployment, go into an execution environment. So I'm using CTFD. I've got a Node backend for some things, some Python, running in Heroku, because of course Salesforce, and I get an account for that. But you can use whatever you want. This runs great in Docker. Again, in that repo, there's a bunch of Dockers. One is a CTFD instance. There's a slightly customized OWASP juice shop instance in there. I built a little prompt injection CTF that uses LangChain and your own OpenAI key if you want to do a little bit of that, and a few other things. So that's all in the repo. But having this means that what I have now is, again, we are on monthly cadence of running this CTF for new engineers. I have this tooling in place. It will take me 10, 15 minutes if Sid comes to me and says, I want to spin up a new capture the flag because we've got this new set of people that are coming in. We want a custom set of challenges that are more security related. We've done this for internal security challenges. It takes 10, 15 minutes to fork everything, spin it up, drop it out on a new Heroku dyno. Bam, now we've got an entire clean CTF environment that's set up. People start collaborating in source code, writing out challenges. When they commit, it fires off build script, gets pushed out to the dev environment, and 5 minutes after you commit, you go to the dev instance or the QA instance, and you look in your challenges now in the scoring system and ready to go. That means easy to collaborate on, easy to change, easy to update, and we're ready to say, okay, we're ready to ship it. Migrate it to production. Now we've got a brand new capture the flag that lives for however long we need it to live for that purpose. And we've done very little repetitive work because it's done by the scripts and the integration. There's the repo. Kuemerle BASC 2025. Like I said, there's a lot out there. Most important thing is there's the steps.md. That's got the scripts. It's got an entire walkthrough. It will take you, there's a document out there that will take you all the way through. If you want to, our baseline is we have Juice Shop. We want to use that as our baseline challenges. There's scripts, all the scripts out there. You take Juice Shop, you spin it up on a Docker instance. You extract the challenges from it using the command line utility for that. That dumps them out into a backup file. They're JSON. I got a script to convert it to YAML. Now you've got a YAML file. You go and you edit it. And then you've got scripts to take that YAML file, reconvert it back to CTFD JSON, zip it up into a backup file, and CTFD has scriptable import capabilities. So again, in the Docker for CTFD, it'll automatically import and populate from that backup file just by looking at an environment variable. So now I've got, fully integrated way of building out capture the flag. Measurement is important. Being able to demonstrate that this is an effective tool for security training. How do we get there? Well, having that iterative development process, starting small, getting those first successes, getting that feedback, coming back, building it out a little more, expanding our audience, expanding our scope. And I'm sure once you play a CTF, you generally want to play more, right? It's kind of addictive. So it's a great way, again, of getting people hooked. And I've worked with developers, again, working with teenagers, starting them off on these more entry-level CTFs, and then they're going on and they're like, okay, that was really good. Now, where do I find out more? And I point them at other CTFs, the SANS Cyber Course and a bunch of others. And, maybe in a couple of years, we'll have some new recruits for the security team. To further communicate, we want every manager's favorite thing. We want dashboards to demonstrate our effectiveness, right? Because we know what we're doing. We're having a measurable effect, but we need to demonstrate that to the people that are putting up the budget for this security training. Again, I showed some dashboards. These are some of the publicly available ones from the customer-facing engagement, and again, having those demonstrable tens of minutes of engagement time, people interacting with multiple tens of the challenges, was a great way to demonstrate to our management, to the event management, that what we were doing was compelling, because we can say, okay, if you look at all the booths, what do you think the average visit time is for this one and that one? It's okay, someone walks up and talks for a minute or two, or walks by and looks at it. Ours is, we've got people sitting here for 10, 15, 20 minutes. We've got people staying up till 2 a.m. In a data set and repositories, some sample data as well, you can actually build your own reports. Again, guilty as a Salesforce employee, these are Tableau reports. Tableau is an awesome little reporting system. This is a freely available analytics tool, but you've got in the repo sample CSVs that you can, again, look at and build these nice dashboards of what level of interaction you were getting from your specific CTF. And this is, again, that great way of coming back and iterating on your content. What categories are people interested in? What categories are people not working in? Is it because that category is incorrectly targeted? Is it too hard? Is it too easy? Is it just something that we're not emphasizing enough? So having those metrics around engagement will really help you to tune and build future ones. There's a lot of vulnerable stuff out there. I built on JuiceShop. I built on Salesforce platform. AWS is fun. Lots of other vulnerable applications that are out there, infrastructure. So lots of fun things that you can use as a foundation to build challenges on top of. While we're talking gamification, one quick other thing. The Adam Shostak's Elevation of Privilege card game, really fun way of teaching people threat modeling. I know there's been some great threat modeling talks here. There's going to be more. If you need to teach developers threat modeling, Elevation of Privilege is a fun and interesting way of working through that. There's a new book that gives a whole walkthrough of it. And in that repository, again, is a version of Cumulus, which is a online web-based elevation of privilege instance, and there is even a threat model in there for you to use should you want to take a look at it. With that, wrapping up, we talked about why you would want to build those CTFs. Again, look at what you're trying to accomplish, look at your audiences that you're targeting, look at the challenges that you want to build. We talked a lot about what to build, what those challenges should be, how to make them appropriate, and then tooling that's out there. Feel free to use the open source tools if you want to build something yourself. PRs are welcome, but at least you'll have a baseline set of free or freely available tooling that's out there in the wider ecosystem that you can absolutely take and use and build internally. CTFD, again, they have a commercial and hosted version as well, so you don't even have to host it yourself. If you want to pay up a little money, they'll happily host it for you, and I know they've got a whole bunch of add-ons and imports and exports, so if you want to pay something to get things done, you can certainly do that as well. Things that you can do. Again, my recommendation, if this is something that you do want to do, get a timeline for it, start working on it now, put budget proposals together, talk to your boss, talk to other stakeholders, and think about how in the next X months you want to accomplish your first one, and then how you're going to build on that, because this is something that you will need to build on and grow and maintain. This is not a one and done. It's boring if it's the same thing year after year, time after time, and it'll drive you nuts just doing the same thing over and over again. So don't drive your players nuts. Make sure that you're going to keep bringing them fresh content, fresh challenges, fresh things to do. All right, I used a lot of resources. Again, my repo has the slides. I want to thank Salesforce for giving me the opportunity to build the stuff, to blog about it publicly, to release some open source tooling for it. Lots of other stuff out there. The slides are also in the repo, so you can get to those. I'm on Mastodon. I'm pretty easily findable. And again, thank you so much for your time. I've got 4 minutes for Q&A, and appreciate everyone coming out. Can we run it back one slide to the resource page? There we go. Yes, person that I do not know and have never met.
Oh yeah. So, how did you get the metrics for how long a user has been playing it? Like, was that something you had to manually figure out, or is that part of your CTF?
Sure. So, how did I get the metrics for how people are playing it and how long? With CTFD, it timestamps absolutely everything. So, as people are interacting with CTFD, if they attempt to submit a flag, that's a submission. So every submission is tracked, whether it's a correct answer or not. Every solve is tracked. So and also their registration. So they registered, that creates a user entry. That's got a timestamp. Everything else that they've done in the system is tied to that user ID. So I know which challenges they opened at which time, and when they tried to answer it, and whether that answer was right or not. So the total amount of time that they interacted is fuzzy in that it's from their first interaction to their last interaction. So it's not necessarily completely accurate, but for the metrics I was pulling, we reset that CTF every day. So at most, they had 1 day to interact with it. And most of the time we had tables out, so as they were interacting with it, they were right there on site. Yes?
With developers, are you using this to supplement secure code training, and then do you have developer-centric KPIs and metrics that you're tracking?
Sure. So for developers, this is a part of our security training for developers. We have computer-based training. We have self-paced learning. Salesforce has an entire education platform called Trailhead. There are both internal and external security modules that we assign to developers. We have in-person, via Zoom, interactive training with new developers. We have ongoing security training. CTFs are an important part of that ongoing training. So as a new developer, you get the initial round of coming in, getting your initial security training, competing against everyone else in your class for that CTF. And then, again, various teams want to build and use a capture the flag for specific goals or for regular training. That's absolutely something that the tooling and the framework supports. Yes?
So when talking about like gamification of education and game theory, I think of like Duolingo or like Brilliant. I know they have CS courses, and the way they do it is through more of like a roadmap. But I know you've given examples where the user themselves chooses what they want to educate themselves on based on associated point values that you determine. So is there anecdotally, I guess, a system that could be more beneficial by like deciding, I guess, the order that users learn?
Sure. Okay. So yeah, the question is, a lot of places and learning systems put a roadmap, put certain requirements on. The CTF can seem a little bit more free-form. It all really comes down to two main drivers. One is the selection of challenges within the CTF. We can guide, again, I've got tooling to very easily build however many variations of CTF I need and want, and can publish a CTF that's specifically targeted at whatever class of vulnerability or whatever concepts we want to get across to a certain audience. So some of it is challenge selection, and then some of it is external incentive where we can say, for recurring security training, if you're coming in and you need to do recurring security training, here is a CTF, and we have a minimum set of challenges that you need to accomplish in order for it to be considered a pass in grade on your annual security training. So what we can, while you can make it look like there's a bit of an element of choice to some things, you can at least set a minimum bar of you must accomplish at least this much in order for your attempt to be determined successful for, in terms of reporting to your manager that you've successfully completed training or that you've met whatever requirements are supposed to be there for your job. And that's something you can also enforce through CTFD. You can have challenges that are dependent on other ones. You can have prerequisites. So, we could say we can build an entire chain of these, this challenge is required for you to be considered successful in completing it, and it has all of these other dependencies, so you have to work your way through the dependencies as a player. So it's more of guiding the player in the direction where we want them to have what we consider at least a bare minimum, and give them an opportunity to go beyond and that helps us to also identify, again, those candidates for security champion, for eventual recruit onto the security team. If you've got, we have 100 challenges and we say, okay, everyone's required to do these 30, and half the people do 30, 2/3 of the people do 50 of them, and 10 people do all of them. We identified who is definitely going to be a candidate for a security champion or whatever else. All right, I am over time, so I'll take any other questions out in the hallway. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it.